Today's guest is John Timothy. He's a comedian at the Upright Citizens Brigade, a board game enthusiast, and is part of a team that is bringing a Native American animation story to Netflix. So without further ado, let's get into this episode with a little bit of ETG Dream, and sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 80.
Please don't let me down now. I've been gone for a while, you've been tripping. Late night on my phone, I've been sipping. Got me up too late, baby, I'm just trying to sleep. I'm just trying to sleep. Would you love me in my dreams? I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to forget all my problems, cause I'm done. Everybody watching when they look at what might be. I just wanna call my mama, tell her I'm the one. Nothing she ain't know, got my angels right by me. Yeah, got my guidance. I'm just trying to sleep so I can fly in. Baby, take my hand, know that I'm the pilot. I've been waiting just to show you, go and tell me if you like it.
Did you start with sketch comedy, stand-up comedy, theater? Where did you start your comedy? Like, where did your whole comedy start?
Yeah. So let's see here. I started doing plays back in high school, actually, back in the day. And I was very fortunate that my high school was huge and had a comedy sports high school league in my town of Indianapolis, where I grew up. And we had a sponsor. I think the French teacher was married to one of the performers, and so we got him as our coach, and we would go around and compete in short form improv competitions against everybody all around Indianapolis, which was great fun. And then I when I went to college, I was on a team for 4 years, which was, I think, the best, man. There's really nothing like just getting up and having one show a week for 4 years, like it's irreplaceable. The amount of failing you get to do in a very safe space was incredible. And then I went to New York because I knew I wanted to pursue. It was fuzzy at the time, but I was like, I want to keep doing this. And I know the Upright Citizens Brigade, and I, had taken like a 101 class there over a summer when I was interning in the city. So I went back to like really pursue it, even though not knowing exactly what that meant at the time.
Yeah. So what I kind of want to play off what you said about it was a safe place to kind of fail at the time.
Mm-hmm.
4
Yeah.
years, you could go to an open mic night here wherever you are. You might not know everyone, and it's probably the same thing in your situation. But I bet you it was nice to have that that net almost to have.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in comedy.
Absolutely. Like as I'm getting further along in my career, the thing that I'm hearing like my agents say is that like comedy people move in packs. And so like the sooner you can get, and he's working at like high level, like talking like staffing TV shows. And like, it's true, like all my friends at the UCB that I made over the years, like you can see how, like split into packs, and like you just kind of move from show to show together, or like, it's a big group of people who like, yeah, hire this person because I worked with them, in a club 10 years ago, they're good people, and the sooner you can find your people and like start making those connections, it's, I want to say like on the long term on par as valuable as like the actual like, comedic work that you're putting in, which you have to do both, but
Yeah. Networking. Yeah. Especially like you said in the comedy world, I feel like is a really big piece to the puzzle of that point, So UCB, is that your college you went to? When I think UCB, is that UC Santa Barbara? I'm
Oh, sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So the UCB is the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater.
Okay.
It's Amy Poehler's theater, and she founded with 3 other dudes from Chicago. And they moved to New York and had a TV show on Comedy Central back in the day. And so they have and had a really weird in this COVID time. Like pre-COVID, they had 4 theaters, 2 in LA, 2 in New York, and like training centers in both, and taught a bunch of people. And I was a teacher and performer there. So, I had like a Saturday show every week for, years. But now I think they're down to 1 theater, and, it's questionable if that's even going to open up again, here in Los Angeles. So it's, it's a big comedy monolith that, whose future is, has a big question mark next to it. But, I got to take improv classes for years. And then I took sketch and sketch video classes and was on, teams that did all that stuff. And that was amazing.
Yeah, I mean those sketches. I went to actually my first improv sketch was actually about 2.5 years ago. No, it was about a year and a half ago. Actually, I added an extra year there, and so I walked in and I never really I never been a part of one. So I walked in and I totally checked it out, and it seems like a really tight knit community. Like
Yeah.
everyone up there looks like they're practicing with one, and it's like going to a football game. These people
Yeah.
are in harmony, in synchronicity. They're synced up together, and they're performing. And
Yeah,
I feel like
absolutely.
it is like a sport, like you said. I've
Mhm.
never heard the term like comedy sport. Is that what you said? Comedy sports?
Comedy sports. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've never heard of that before, and kind of just linking those two together, I could
Yeah.
definitely see those two.
Absolutely. People, when I was first started becoming an improv teacher, you get the kind of smart aleck response, like, well, how do you teach improv? I thought you
Mhm.
made it up. And then you, one, stop being friends with that person. But then two, normally you'd explain like, well, like it is a lot like training someone for sports. Like you can't train someone for like the game that they're going to play, but you can train someone in skills and you
Mhm.
can train someone in things that probably will happen. Like someone is probably going to come to you and try to tell you what the location of your scene is, and you need to train yourself to not, if someone comes and is like, here we are at the barber shop, you need to train yourself to not be like, this isn't the barber shop, this is the moon.
Mhm.
Because like, maybe that'll be funny, but that's just gonna be a harder life
Mhm.
you're setting up for yourself. And then similarly, like there's that in kind of invisible thing about chemistry, which I think happens between people and comedians kind of all over. Like there's just nothing that replaces, some sports teams might technically have worse players on it, but if they're good teammates and good, like have good teamwork and stuff, then they can do much better things than the sum of their parts. It's kind of
Exactly.
amazing to watch.
I think that makes it. That's a great point, because yeah, like you said, someone who could just elevate someone else's game just with
Hmm.
chemistry,
Hmm.
and I guarantee you that is the same case in your scenario as well in the comedy world. Um, so in the comedy world now, everything's slowly starting to open up, and
Yeah.
from what I'm hearing, I'm picking up that you're from the LA area. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
in New York for 10 plus years, and then I recently moved to Los Angeles. Like moved to Los Angeles, God, like a year ago, like last February. So
Mhm.
like it was a really exciting time to be moving across the country.
how how so did you? So I'm guessing from New York to LA is a big. I haven't been to New York City. I've been to upstate New York and Buffalo a
Cool.
couple times, but is it a big change? Like, is it as big of a change as everyone says it is from New York to LA?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really sometimes. So my girlfriend moved with me, and sometimes it's hard to differentiate what living in LA during the pandemic is
Mhm.
like versus like what it would be in like normal times,
Mhm.
because sometimes we'll catch ourselves being like, man, I miss New York because we never go out anymore and we don't see our friends and we're always wearing masks here in LA.
Mhm.
It's like, well, that's not really Los Angeles' fault current really,
Yeah.
like it's not like not like all the cool parties and hangouts and bars we're missing in New York are doing anything either. So
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to tell. Hopefully I'm hoping that like people will be, excited to get out and do things, in LA once
Exactly.
this kind of pandemic
I was
we kind of
actually
get on
looking.
the other side.
I was looking forward to going to Los Angeles last summer for an internship over in. God, I totally forgot the. It's messed up that I forgot the name already, but it was it was near the Irvine Improv. If you know where that is.
Okay. Yeah.
It was over there in that area, but COVID hit, and then I was just kind of,
Mm,
things kind of went their different ways. But why we're here and why we're talking about comedy, I wanted to ask
yeah.
you, what is Spirit Rangers for everybody? Is it's a new thing in Netflix that I've heard about, and I was really interested about it. I couldn't wait to talk to you about it.
Great. So, yeah, Spirit Rangers is a new animated show for like preschool age that is features like a Native American showrunner, Native American voice actors, and an all Native American writing staff. It's kind of a very unique in that way, and it follows like three young siblings who live in like a national park with their parents, and they have like a special secret that they are spirit rangers and they can transform into like animal spirits, and they use that power to go solve problems that happen in the park. it's really, really great. And I'm a voice actor on the show.
Oh my goodness, that's so cool to just so how did it come about? Like, were you just like, did you apply or did you go to a convention or,
Yeah.
you know?
It kind of similarly, like, like I was saying earlier, like it's about finding your people. It's like it kind of came out through my connections in like the Los Angeles like native scene, like native writers and native comedians kind of all grouped together. It's there's not a lot of us, so it's pretty easy. When a new one comes to town, everyone's like, oh, who's this thing? So through my friend Joey Clift, who is a writer on the show,
I've
and
actually interviewed him before.
oh yeah, he's
Yes.
great. He's so
Yeah.
nice. So Joey's great, and he told me, he's like, hey, he kind of sent out a blast, like, hey, who are native comedians and actors who would be interested in this kind of thing, and he set me up and sent my name in, and I got the audition, and then had to do some voiceover work, and then record a song, had to sing a bit, which was very thrilling. And then a couple weeks later, I found out I got the show. So
That's so awesome. So for voice acting, I've heard it's, a lot of people say it's harder than just speaking into a mic, and like you got to like pronounce stuff. Like you just said, you did voice acting work. What is that like? For people who've never heard of voice acting work before, or
yeah,
voiceover.
it's really wild. It's you go into a room, and then they have a script and a microphone, and then they're like, okay, line 3, give it a go, and then you do it 3 or 4 or 5 different times, and then they decide whether you got it. And most of the time you're like, if they hired you, hopefully has been the case, like normally you're in your first 3, you've gotten what they want, right? Like you kind of understand the character and you're trying to convey it with your voice, and then sometimes they'll be like, actually we were thinking, like, actually we think this person's sad, a little sadder than you seem to think it is. Maybe try a couple sad versions, whatever, and you give that a go. It's different than voice acting, because I have such stage background. I can find, I see that it kind of amuses them that I use my hands a lot, and I really gesture, because I have to kind of ramp into into sounding like I'm acting. It's hard to leave those things behind. But I'm in a room, and as long as it sounds right, they don't care.
Yeah, maybe they take some inspiration. Maybe the animation team will see your expressions. Maybe they pick that up. Maybe, who knows?
They really could. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see when it drops. I'm like, oh yeah, that's my I'm being loud hand gesture.
Yes. So, is this expected coming out soon? I saw the article posted, and I read it a while back when it first came out, but I saw a release. I don't know if you're allowed to
Sure.
say that
I
thing.
don't know either. I think I do think it is coming out later this year.
Okay.
I think based on the little I know. It's funny being a voice actor, because it's kind of my first professional voice acting gig. Most of my other experiences have been live stage or writing for TV, and so it's weird to be kind of both the a face and the voice, and one of the most recognizable to a lot of people who watch the show, parts of a show, but then to also be really incidental. And I think this is larger. This is larger in TV. You love you love the TV shows, you love the stars, but in terms of the whole production of sound and recording and audio and construction and the whole thing, the actors are such a small part of the whole thing, that they're kind of the last to know a lot of things, because it doesn't really matter that they know some stuff. So it's really funny being switching from writing and kind of having this bird's eye view to being hey, you're recording tomorrow, we'll see you. and okay, cool, great, when is this coming out, who, what, all right, fine, I guess I'll show up.
Yeah, because I never really understood. I mean, as soon as I started getting older, I realized, I thought the actors were the main part of it,
Right?
But
Yeah,
there's the animators, you got the story writers, you're right. There's so many pieces to it. And I feel like sometimes the actors are all right, hey, come in, do your stuff, and then we'll get the post work.
Absolutely. Right. They get all the glory and all the shiny parts, and then get to kind of, drop in and come out.
So, do you guys, did you guys have a studio you would walk in, do your lines, you'd be there, and then you just see all these other people, part of the team, just grilling?
Yeah, it's weird. It's also, again, hard to tell what's COVID life and what's regular life. I think for voiceover, stuff, it is a little more piecemeal.
Hmm.
Like I read things about like how even like big movies like Toy Story, they're not they're not even in the same room.
Wow.
They're just like recording like their bits. Because if you can act well enough and someone says the line, you can act like you're supposed to, and you can chop it up and make it sound right. So especially because of COVID, like I go into a studio, but there's no one there in the room for like a half an hour, if not
Hmm.
more, before I get in there, just to make sure that that since they've wiped everything down, the air can circulate and everything. And I think some people are choosing to record at home. I had COVID, so like I was pretty. I was like, what can you do to me? What am I going to do? Get more COVID?
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, please let me get out of my house. I will go to this recording studio and record. So I've really, and then the showrunner, Carissa, and then like the voice director are like on a Zoom, and then the
Mhm.
studio engineers in the other room.
Oh wow!
So
So it's a still a process, you know.
it's
That's
still a
still
process.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. What was the studio like, if you don't mind me asking? Was it just like a foam room like you see on movies and stuff?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's like a foam room, and like they've got like all this water and all the they got water for you, which is very exciting.
Mhm.
They've got a bunch of like pads for you if you didn't bring your own pad for your script, and then a big projection screen. And then the exciting thing is there's a glass, big glass window where I think these people might be in regular times, kind of like
Mhm.
being in the room to like with the engineer, but right now they're all just kind of zooming in from their home offices, wherever, because they don't really need to be there per
Yeah,
se.
that makes total sense. And then I want to also ask you too. With that, do you see yourself doing more voice work in the future?
Hmm. Yeah, I'd love to. I just did actually with Joey again. I just did a animated sketch for Comedy Central we recorded yesterday, and it's something I really enjoy because it does make you like all this stuff. It's all the skills they're different skill sets. Like stage acting is different than film acting, which is different than voice acting, but
Mhm.
they're all very complementary. And so like I feel after doing this Spirit Rangers work, it's like, oh, I've definitely had to focus more on my voice and like because that's the only tool you have, and being forced to kind of drill down and focus on exclusively that has a lot of benefits kind of across the board for when I'm doing like other performance and other types of acting.
Yeah, it's like when you learn one thing, it's like you learn an umbrella of things as well.
Absolutely,
You
yeah.
know, um, but also with that, my when I came across your Instagram, I thought of many things. I want to message this guy to learn about Spirit Rangers, and then I saw Board Game Enthusiast
Oh
on your
yeah.
bio,
Yeah.
and I was really because I like board games, but I didn't know what board games you were talking about because
Oh sure.
I'm pretty like I'm Monopoly type, kind of just the
Right.
simple ones, the ones
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
knows.
yeah.
But I
Hmm.
don't know if you were deep into the board game
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Oh yeah. I'm
So,
deep, 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 deep.
so I'm like
It's
on the
scary deep.
surface level with Monopoly and Uno and stuff.
Come,
So I was wondering.
come, Dominic. Let us take this journey together.
So where are you at on terms of board game? Like where?
So back in high school, I used to work in a board game store.
Mhm,
So like I was like the guy behind the glass counter, like selling like people magic cards and like
mhm,
being like, you gotta check out this game, Apples to Apples and Settlers of Catan and stuff.
mhm.
And it's only gotten worse. It's only gotten worse since then. Actually, the best, like working in that board game store, I don't know how my parents let me do it because I want to say like literally every dollar I made just turned around back to the store I was working at. I was basically an indentured servant. Um, but then, like I kept up with it through, high school, college, and actually living in New York was really good for my board game. You could call it obsession, because I just didn't have room to keep buying board games.
Mhm.
But then I found a group of comedians, comedian pals, the board game boys. That's what my buddy Phil. He has a young son, and to explain that there were these four grown men coming over to hang out with his dad every Monday for like 4 years. They had like, well, it's time for the board game boys to the board game boys are coming over. And then as he got older, he had more questions about the Bogey boys and then the board game boys, and it's very cute. He's our little mascot. But yeah, so speaking to the board games, and then I also host like a board game design party jam,
What?
whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so like I get like 3 or 4, I think usually about 4 of my friends, and I give them the prompt of like an '80s movie. And then they have like 3 days to design a board game, and then like it's usually like on a Thursday or Friday, and then on Sunday we'd get together and like have a party and like invite other people to come play the board games they like made. And it was always really fun. You know, we did one with we did Blade Runner, we did Back to the Future, we did Die Hard, you know, a bunch of different kind of stuff. And it was exciting because you get, I think the time pressure, everyone knew that you only had 3 days to make a game. So everyone was like, you made anything. Great. That's amazing. Whereas I think if you were like, okay, in 2 months, we're having a game party, people would freak out and it wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be nearly as fun.
So working there, you know, selling board games, where you obviously had your most popular, you know, in these stores. What were like the top? What were the top 5 favorite ones you would say that everyone would buy?
Top 5 favorite ones. Everyone came in for Settlers Catan, definitely. Everyone came in. Everyone wanted. We had somebody get into a physical fight over a copy of Monopoly. They had like, this was the first one that had like the credit card swipe.
Oh,
and they were like, you know, it was like, wow, I need this. Like, I can't do the math. And so we had to like actually break up, you know, two dads who were like fighting it for their family. Apples to Apples was really big. Chess actually was, we were in this mall. We were in what was called the Fashion Mall. And so it was like all these very glitzy, like high, you know, kind of high end for Indianapolis, Indiana. But, you know, like fancy stores. And then this was like the one, we were like tucked underneath, like in this cove, like underneath the escalator. Like it was the darkest part of the entire mall. We also were glass and we were like these trolls in the corner. Oh God, why was I talking about why we were trolls? Because of chess. But then the one thing we did have, we had the big we had glass front to our store, and we had all these like fancy, like, you know, chess sets, like gnomes versus ogres chess set, or like, do you want a chess reenactment of the Battle of Britain? Here you are. So that drew a lot of like wandering people who, you know, in to gawk and gaze at the way too expensive chess sets.
It's board game, and I'm picturing like a board game store. You guys also said like you had cards too, like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon.
Yep. And we had miniatures, like, you know, those like the Warhammer games that people like spend, you know, like $30 on a pewter miniature this big to paint. And we had role-playing games, you know, like Dungeons and Dragons or any of that stuff. So it was like really a nerd heaven, pretty much. I couldn't have been happier. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'm just so interested about that. It was just, I always like the vibe when I go into those places, and because, you know, I feel like it means more when you go buy something like that from there than Walmart. You know, like don't go get a Monopoly board at Walmart.
Absolutely, yeah.
But like, you know, like, oh, they have a special version of it here. I feel like that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And if you know, like, and Target and Barnes and Noble actually have really picked up their board game selection in the last, you know, I don't know, 5-10 years or so. Like where it's like functions as like these aren't just like kind of first thought games. There's some like crafted kind of, you know, weirder games in here, which is really cool to see it kind of explode like that.
So what is your favorite board game? If I could give one final question.
Here we go. Okay, now we're getting to it. Let's see here. I think I can tell you my.
You can do top 5 actually if you want.
Top 5. Here we go. Now we're talking. Okay, so number 1, Citadels, Bruno Faiduti. You play. You're building your own city competitively. Everyone's got special powers. It's amazing. It's a little card game. Number 2, I'm really enjoying Pandemic Legacy. Have you ever seen those? You play people trying to fight off like a big disease, very, you know, relevant. But then like it's what's called like a legacy style board game where what you do in one game affects like the next session. So like if you like really messed up in a city, got really sick in one game, well then you have to put a sticker on the board. And so every other time you play it like down the line, that's just a very sick city because you messed up the first time. Or you get like cool powers because like, oh, we saved all 3 of the, you know, the cities we need. We get like a special radio antenna that gives us +1 to communicate, you know, whatever, who knows, I don't know. So it's very fun. It makes it feel like more like a story you're making, which is really cool. And then my third favorite is probably, I really love Gloomhaven, which is this enormous like tactical board game where your adventurers in a party going into dungeons and murdering people. So it's like a Dungeons and Dragons role playing game. If you wanted like more cardboard bits to go along with it. It's a little more visual, a little less make them up. So I'll give you my top 3. I think that'll.
Okay, so we got Citadel, Pandemic Legacy, and then Gloomhaven.
I think Gloomhaven. Yep.
I gotta check these out. So are you still doing board games? Are you still doing them like every week? Or are you having? Because I know you have a group of friends, but
I did. Yeah. We at various phases in the pandemic, we've been part of a bubble, and like back in the fall when things were pretty good, we had a bubble, and we would play games with this other couple, but then things started getting real rough again, kind of in October, November. So we kind of put that on hold, and we're figuring out a date to kind of get back to it here. Coming up soon. But we've there's also a lot of like digital board games, there's like Board Game Arena is like a website where like a lot of these smaller board games have digitized themselves, and like you can play them for free online against other people. So we've found that like that has worked pretty well in the meantime.
Awesome. Well, if you want to leave anything, if you want to just let the people know anything else about you before we end this.
Sure.
This is your time. Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to?
Let's see here. Oh, hey, check out. You got to check out, the Reboot of Leverage, which I just wrote on, which is very exciting. Which is coming to Amazon, IMDb TV, sometime this summer, I guess. Summer, fall, soon. Who knows? It's really exciting. If you like the first show, hey, it's coming back, and it's gonna be good. I think that's me.
Yep. And then what are your socials? I'll write them down.
Yes. On Twitter, it's myjtim. So like, who's JTim? My JTim. And then same for Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This
is
a lot. I'm super excited about Spirit Rangers. And also, I hate to self-invite myself, but if you ever need anyone for board games, I'm down to,
absolutely
anytime. Let me know.
Absolutely. You know it. You're at top of the invite list.
Please don't let me down now. I've been gone for a while, you've been tripping. Late night on my phone, I've been sipping. Got me up too late, baby, I'm just trying to sleep. I'm just trying to sleep. Would you love me in my dreams? I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to forget all my problems, cause I'm done. Everybody watching when they look at what might be. I just wanna call my mama, tell her I'm the one. Nothing she ain't know, got my angels right by me. Yeah, got my guidance. I'm just trying to sleep so I can fly in. Baby, take my hand, know that I'm the pilot. I've been waiting just to show you, go and tell me if you like it. So let me down now. I've been gone for a while, you've been tripping. Late night on my phone, I've been sipping. Got me up too late, baby, I'm just trying to sleep. I'm just trying to sleep. Would you love me in my dreams? I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to
playing act like I'm sleeping, they ain't gon' notice me. Think I live for the week and my mind is weakening. Need a smoke break and 2 shots of whatever. Multiply the 2 until they both surrender. And now I'm better than ever, like got a cuties watching. Like rollers watching the Cuban autumn, the mouths are watering. I'm drowning, I'm hoping the world ain't pleased, I'm underground. I'm drowning, I need a hand, so
please don't let me down now. I've been gone for a while, you've been tripping. Late night on my phone, I've been sipping. Got me up too late, baby, I'm just trying to sleep. I'm just trying to sleep. Would you love me in my dreams? I'm just trying to sleep.